The inquest into Sheku Bayoh's death whilst in police custody heard yesterday from a female police constable who PC Craig Walker spoke about in evidence last week. Nicola Short, who was at the time a PC but who has since left Police Scotland allegedly due to the injuries she sustained on the same day that Sheku died. Not my words, but thought it was an interesting use of words not to say injuries sustained by Sheku, but rather intimate they could have been caused by him on the same day. I don't know, maybe I'm looking into it too much, but I do sometimes notice the use of people's words. Inquiry itself is into the circumstances of Sheku's death and whether race was a factor in the unfortunate outcome. Nicola Short is described as just 5 foot 1 inch tall, short by name, short by nature, and was one of the responding officers sent to investigate a 999 call that then 31-year-old Sheku Bayoh was carrying a knife. While sitting in the witness box, Senior Counsel Angela Graham QC read out parts of Short's statement. The inquiry heard that whilst on their way to the incident in Kirkcaldy in a police van, PC Short said she told her colleagues, "I hate going to calls like this." She told the inquiry, "I just felt because of my build, essentially, if I was to get stabbed, it would probably increase chances of it being fatal." Describing how she arrived at the scene on Hayfield Road, she said, "I was fearful, I was scared. I felt like my priority was to deal with what was in front of me." So rather than thinking about and being confident in the training provided by the police force, her arse fell out and put her in an immediate state of fear, which would, in anybody's mind, contribute to them panicking and not following training. And the police want more women in the force? No offence, girls. Inquiry heard previously from PC Craig Walker how they initially tried using incapacitant spray, which seemingly had no effect, and said Mr. Bayoh was wiping it away from his face as if it was water. Short said his muscles were massive, they were bulging out of his top. "I drew my baton and ordered Mr. Bayoh to get on the ground, and he then shouted, 'Fucking come on then,' and began boxing, skipping towards me." Explained how she shuffled back as Sheku moved towards her, and when he got close, she said she instinctively ran away. Being like completely overwhelmed with terror is the best way I could describe it. She felt an almighty blow to the back of her head and fell to the ground, moving into a fetal position after falling on her front initially. She then told the inquiry that a colleague picked her up by her stab vest and told her to get back in the van. She sounds like more of a hindrance than a help in any situation. Walker said last week that he saw Sheku stamp on Short, but from the information I've seen thus far, that hasn't been mentioned, or she hasn't mentioned that yet. On Tuesday morning this week, Sheku's family supporters are said to have taken the knee outside the inquiry at Capitol House in Edinburgh. Mr. Bayoh's mother, Aminata, said his sister Katie Johnson arrived on Tuesday morning to chants of Black Lives Matter and "No justice, no peace, no racist police" from about 50 protesters. Speaking about Mr. Bayoh's family, Mr. Anwar, the family solicitor, said they have been fighting for justice for some 7 years now and this struggle is not over. The lawyer told supporters, when Sheku died in police custody 7 years ago, he was a 31-year-old man. He was unarmed, which we know is factually correct. He was walking down the street. Police had been called to an incident after they received reports that a black man had been acting erratically and carrying a knife. When the police arrived, Sheku was unarmed. People talk about George Floyd. George Floyd had 1 police officer restraining him. People should know that up to 7 police officers were involved in the restraint of Sheku Bayoh. His family, at the time, didn't ask for anything special. They asked for justice. Justice should be a right and not a privilege. The family spoke some 2 weeks after Sheku died. They refused to speculate and they always said if Sheku broke the law, then the police had a right to act, but any force used had to be reasonable, legitimate and proportionate. His family then began a campaign for justice, and some 4 years later they were denied that justice by the Lord Advocate and they were told there would be no charges brought. 5 years later, that was confirmed when the government announced the inquiry. The family are asking for this inquiry to be robust, to be impartial, and to deliver the truth to this family, because they know without the truth, they will never get justice. Our justice system in this country likes to talk about being colourblind. As far as Sheku Bayoh's family is concerned, the colour of his skin, his blackness, was used as a weapon. It was seen as a weapon. We are now for the long haul. This inquiry is expected to last 2 or 3 years. Today is a critical day. If we march for George Floyd, if black lives actually matter in Scotland, then it requires all those hundreds, if not thousands of people who turned up for George Floyd. They have been fighting for justice for some 7 years now, and the struggle is not over. On Wednesday this week, the Inquest also heard from PC Ashley Tomlinson, who said he thought Sheku Bayoh had killed his colleague whilst they were trying to restrain him. Tomlin said he feared for his life and thought, "This is it, I'm not going home," when faced with attempting to restrain Sheku. Has anybody else seen this disturbing pattern of cowardice that these police are displaying? Describing the incident, PC Tomlinson said he twice sprayed Mr Bayoh with CS spray in an attempt to control him, but it had no effect. He then saw Mr Bayoh strike PC short, who he said was not wearing head protection, with his fist to the back of her head. That action caused her to fall or lose balance, and she fell forward onto the road. She put her arms out and took a dive towards the road. I remember is she tried to push herself up, and then Mr Bayoh stamped on her back, which has caused her basically... And after a brief silence, PC Tomlinson, getting emotional, added, "I thought he had killed her." He continued, "I used my baton to deliver a blow. When you're dealing with someone like that, you can't run away." Mr Tomlinson said he had then struck Mr Bayoh in the head area with his baton. "This didn't stop him, so I delivered 2 more baton strikes," he said. "That was enough to get him to turn around and look at me." Angela Graham QC, senior counsel to the inquiry, asked the witness how he felt when faced with Mr Bayoh, to which he replied, "In my mind, I thought, fucking hell, this is it." He added, "The next thing I remember is PC Walker coming into my view from my left, and I don't know how to describe it other than a sort of bear hug wrestle thing that basically knock Mr Bayoh off balance and take him to the floor." Tomlinson said he then struck Bayoh's Achilles tendon area with his baton as a form of pain constraint to try and get a form of response from the detainee. After no reaction, Mr Tomlinson said he then discarded his baton and straddled Mr Bayoh's legs and tried to handcuff his right hand. After losing his balance, he said he pressed his emergency button to alert the police control room of the situation. Sheku's family stand by their convictions that racism played a part in Sheku's death. The inquiry before Lord Brackadale, which is examining the immediate circumstances leading to the death of Mr Bayoh, how the police dealt with the aftermath, the following investigation, and whether race was a factor, continues. Big thank you to channel supporters, especially these guys. Your support is truly appreciated. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will, and until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials.